morning, Power Hour Nation, straight up top of the hour, wherever you are across the globe. We are so honored that you've chosen to spend your time with us, Daniel and Sam here at Power Hour Nation. PowerHourNation.com, of course, is our website. You can listen live at the top. TalkStream Live, we're on all the time. TalkStreamLive.com across the globe also. Your emails and what you want, it says a lot to do with the shows and the guests we get and the fantastic job that Catherine does. I mean, this has been just a marvelous week of guests Catherine has provided for us and helped procure with your suggestions, and today is no different. You wanted to hear about Flat Earth. We're going to talk about Flat Earth, among other things. Robbie Davidson is our next guest. He is the founder of Celebrate Truth, which has produced a groundbreaking documentary film entitled Scientism Exposed. And scientism, we'll let Robbie define that, but there's many things that science teaches us that isn't necessarily true. I don't necessarily buy that the Earth is flat being one of them, but we're going to talk about some other things, including evolution. We're very happy to discuss this with Robbie this morning. Robbie, welcome to the Power Hour.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for having me on.
Well, it's our pleasure. It's we love having discussions and interesting people, and you've certainly presented some interesting documentaries and information out there. Let's give some background first before we just really start getting into things. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, kind of your spiritual journey of how you came to look at science a little different?
Sure. I was brought up in a non-Christian home, so a lot of what science or mainstream science had taught me, it kind of made me get to the point where I was pretty much looking at the Bible as something that, obviously couldn't be trusted. How could I trust anything when they couldn't get the universe correct? And again, following a lot of the scientific, theories of the day, it was just kind of laughable. So I lived a lifestyle pretty much completely alienating myself. But at the age of 21, God saved me very miraculously. And from that point forward, I went off to Bible college. I got involved in various ministries, prison ministry, youth ministry. I did inner city. And as I continued on, God led me into different media. So I was involved in print and television and most recently radio, and that was kind of an area. But I've always been very interested in videography and filmmaking, and it wasn't actually until this topic that it kind of propelled me to get out there and put my name out there and really speak on this subject of all subjects. So I've been pretty adamant about the lies of evolution, and studying creation science was a big endeavor of mine, and getting into apologetics and studying all the world religions and the occult and various different type of ideas, just to kind of understand how the world worked, but more specifically how Satan operated in this world. I thought a lot of people looked at it, and of course they believed in Satan, and maybe they believed he was running around and maybe possessing people, which, possession is real. But again, I was more intrigued by how he was working with organizations. He was working, behind the scenes within maybe government, within the institutions of education. And could there be a deeper agenda? And as my journey continued, it led me into the topic that we'll be discussing today. And it was this topic, pretty much everyone that first hears about it laughs about it, including myself. There were a few, years that went by that I'd hear the mumbling or someone talking about that they believe that the Earth was flat, and I'm like, well, they got to be the biggest morons, But once I actually started looking into this, it was very surprising on what I discovered.
Well, before we'll wait till after the break. We're right up against the break. We've got about a minute. As you began to examine satanic involvement in agencies and government, what conclusion did you come to? Did you start to see agendas in education, not just put aside flat Earth, put aside evolution? What other ways was this agenda being brought to bear on the people from your perspective?
Well, I can definitely see as far as the morality, as far as the certain agendas that were being pushed were very evident in my research, even specifically into New Age philosophy and just kind of bringing everyone together under the banner of occult philosophy.
Well, we'll pause right there. On the other side of this 3-minute break, we'll get into some of this evolution, some of the discrepancies, and flat Earth. And your calls, 855-9956. Good morning and welcome back to the Power Hour. 8 minutes after the hour. If you're just joining us or you didn't hear the first section, Robbie Davidson from Celebrate Truth is on. And from a religious perspective, he had a rebirth in his scientific search for knowledge, for truth, and what is true. And specifically, we're talking about flat Earth, and Earth is flat, and evolution, Darwinism, those kind of things. Okay, Robbie, now tell me where Christopher Columbus, Copernicus, and Isaac Newton are all wrong. Go ahead, lay it on me.
Well, again, it goes back pretty far, but I think one person in particular is Copernicus. And you have to understand that the early church, you've got Calvin, you've got Augustine, you've got Martin Luther, calling out the Copernicus model, and you can see how they're kind of, screaming from the rooftops that this is something that should be, looked at. And again, I'm not saying that these guys were flat earthers. In all my research, it doesn't show anything about the shape of the earth. And going forward, really, that's not the point. The point isn't about the shape of the earth. The point is, do we really believe what the Bible says, or are we applying different type of allegory and poetry meanings to the text? So again, when it came across different, verses, like they were calling out, Joshua 10:11, basically saying the sun stood still and the moon stayed. If you actually look into that, which is a historical text, you can't take it allegory or poetry. You've got a very interesting thing where the sun and the moon are commanded to stop. And they do. Well, based on the heliocentric Big Bang cosmology that we've been taught, the Earth would have to stop spinning. You have references in the Bible where it actually goes backwards. So, again, these are the type of structures that we've been given. And, again, do they line up with the Bible? But what I see to many, many people is that you don't have to even come at this topic when it comes to questioning these scientific discoveries. Again, a lot of the stuff that we're being taught as scientific truth are indeed theories. They're not verifiable. You cannot apply the scientific method around them. Evolution is a very good one to start with when it comes to Darwin. And I think a lot of people zeroed in on Darwin, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners have already, that are listening to the show today, have discovered certain lies in the evolution model, with Darwin. But again, you have to follow that back and understand, well, where did evolution come from? And it came from the Big Bang cosmology that we've all been taught. The only problem with that, however, is that when you look in the Bible, you see something very interesting. It shows very clearly that the sun, moon, and stars were created after the Earth. So what was the Earth orbiting in a Big Bang cosmology? So again, this is very interesting. As time went on, people like Copernicus, and you're getting into like Kepler, and you're getting into right up to Lyell and Darwin. But again, Darwin got a lot of his ideas from Copernicus. And when you study Copernicus, a lot of his beliefs were coming from a very occultic vantage point from the mystery schools. And you can follow that right back to Pythagoras, where we get the Pythagorean theorem, and you find the mystery schools and the occult. So you see a very strong spirituality with all the great leaps of science, the great men that came that pivoted our understanding of everything that we see. But again, there's many people coming forward now, not just from a religious biblical standpoint. They're coming to it from a scientific standpoint and saying, I want to go out, I want to apply the scientific method. But when you look around, there's not one scientific experiment anywhere to prove the movement of the Earth. We're told that we're spinning at 1,000 miles at the equator. We're traveling around the sun at 67,000 miles, and we're traveling around the Milky Way at like 670,000 miles. But again, you can't find this at all when it comes to the scientific method.
Okay, let me pause right there. You've said a lot of things I haven't heard. You haven't told me anything scientifically or anything informationally that makes me believe that the Earth is somehow not round. Now, you did bring up the spinning. What about the fact that in the northern hemisphere, the stars seem to go, is it counterclockwise? And then in the southern hemisphere, they go clockwise, or either that or vice versa. I can't remember. But they go like different. And that, right, like the spin of the drain. So what's happening, if the Earth is spinning, depending on where you are, that makes perfect sense by your view. That would prove that it's spinning in one direction.
Okay, well, the spinning of the drain or whatever, that's been debunked. They found based on the flow of the water, depending on the angle. But okay, we'll get into the shape of the Earth. So based on the math, and this is the curvature rates, that anyone can look this up, you're looking at, based on the Earth, the circumference is 24,000 miles in circumference. So basically the curvature math is 8 inches per mile squared. So, for example, when you're starting to look at things 40, 50, 60 miles away, you should not be able to. I mean, at 80 miles away, it should be almost a mile below the curvature of the Earth. Yet people are seeing things with high optics telescopes. And again, there's no explanation for this. When people try to go out and prove the curvature based on the scientific method, the curvature cannot be found anywhere. Now, people will claim they said, well, we've seen it from a plane. Well, that's interesting because modern-day science says that you can't see the curvature until you're at about 70,000, feet. So, for example, people will say, oh, I saw it at the beach or I saw it in the plane. Well, that's impossible, even based on the scientific method or looking at even mainstream science. So they've sent balloons up with fisheye lenses, GoPro, lenses, straight lenses, up to 120,000 feet. The interesting thing is it is completely flat. You can look anywhere and look this up. And what's really intriguing, though, is if we were on a ball, the farther you go up, the horizon is going to drop. But what we're finding is the higher we go, the horizon stays at eye level, no matter if you're on a beach, on a mountain, in a high, weather balloon.
Let me pause you.
Sure.
Let me pause you 1 second because this is a lot of new information for our listeners and the people maybe coming new to this. So
sure.
Let's go over the first thing. You were talking about the curvature. You're talking about the Pythagorean theorem. So if I look across the horizon and something that's 40 miles away, like a city or what have you, a mountain or whatever, if the Earth is curved, then it should start to disappear at a certain rate the farther you go. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. There is a website called metabunk.org/curve, which the simplistic Pythagorean theorem that a lot of people use, it seems like that's not accurate, and that this website purports a different calculation so you can calculate things and be able to see properly what that means as you go further away from a point on the Earth. So there's a website, metabunk.org/curve. /curve, and then you can be able to calculate those things by distances of how high up you should see. Like tall buildings. If buildings are super tall, you still should be able to see them. Your other argument, what was the next argument that your point you were making?
I'm just talking about the horizon. I mean, they've done these calculations in AutoCAD, and as higher you go, the horizon is going to drop. It's never going to stay complete at your eye level, no matter how high you rise. And again, no matter, like I said, if you're at a beach, on a mountain, or you're at 120,000 feet in a weather balloon, the horizon's at eye level. It never drops. And again, you can look at the calculations. Sorry?
What do you say to people, or what do you say when people say the angle, we're getting very scientific, and this may be a little difficult for people listening, but imagine a straight line going out from your eye, and then say you got on a stool and raised up, and you looked at the same point. Well, your eye, the angle of your eye changed, the degree angle changes hardly any. It's an infinitesimal change in the degree of your eyes. The angle of your eyes, the angle of your gaze. Would you agree with that, or what do you say to that?
A stool is flat. I'm talking about a ball. I'm not talking about a stool. I'm talking about a ball. And no matter how big that ball is or small ball that is, the higher you rise on it, the horizon's going to drop. That's just science. That's just physics. You get into all these sort of things. So again, you're talking about a stool and rising up and saying that we're too small, we might not notice it. But we're talking about a ball at 24,000 miles in circumference. You can do these calculations. People are doing them all over the Earth right now as far as the calculations in AutoCAD. They're showing that as you rise up, the horizon is going to drop. But if you're on a complete plane, it's going to stay at eye level. I mean, they're just doing these calculations, so I'm just bringing in the observations using the scientific method, and that's what people are trying to do. Because the big question is this, for all your listeners, what would be the number one scientific proof that you're on a spinning ball? And most people will claim NASA, or they'll say gravity, or they'll say, but really that's kind of the key question here. Why? What's the biggest reason? I'll tell you the biggest reason I believe it, and it has nothing to do with NASA, nothing to do with any of those. In the northern hemisphere, if I look up in the sky, the stars
stars appear to go counterclockwise as the night progresses. In the southern hemisphere, they appear to go opposite. So if the Earth, you can imagine this, if the Earth is spinning, if I'm sitting at the North Pole, the sky is going to look like it's going one direction. If I'm in the South Pole, it's going to look like I'm going opposite direction, exactly like it does. To me, that's the biggest argument for against whatever. Spinning. That's outside of NASA. It's outside of any other planet, really, of anything. To me,
sure,
that's the biggest argument.
And definitely you can use that, but it's not a scientific proof. I mean, it's an observation, and I mean, you can hold that. It's not a problem at all, but it's not a scientific proof.
Well, how could you explain it otherwise?
I'm explaining the fact that basically it says that the luminaries, again, they all move, but we don't. And again, I'm saying there's not one scientific experiment anywhere, and you can look this up. I mean, that will prove scientifically that we are moving. They've all failed. Airy's failure, Michelson-Morley, you can look up all the experiments that have been done. And what happened? They didn't like the results, so they created the theory of relativity. And they started getting into quantum, and they started getting into, dark matter and black holes. All I'm saying is when you get into the real scientific method, they've all failed. There is not one scientific experiment to prove that we're spinning. You can believe we're spinning, but I'm saying it's not scientifically proven.
Okay, we're up on a break. On the other side of the break, I want you to explain to me your vision of what you think the Earth looks like. If it's not a ball, if it's not round, I would really like to know what you think it looks like. Let's go from there. And we'll see. Anybody, your calls, give us a call, 855-995-6923, 855-995-6923. We're examining flat Earth. We're going back to Christopher Columbus days here on the Power Hour this morning. We'll be back after this 4-minute break. Stay tuned. You're listening to PowerHourNation.com. Welcome back to the Power Hour. 24 minutes after the hour, we are talking to Robbie Davidson from Celebrate Truth. Robbie, okay, the floor is yours. Please tell me what you believe the Earth is, kind of shape, form, whatever it looks like.
Sure. Yeah, I want to be clear that I don't ascribe to any, precise model, and I don't have all the answers as far as saying 100% what it is. But what I do, Jake, is in Genesis it talks about that God created the firmament to divide the waters from the waters. And again, he placed the sun, moon, and stars in the firmament. So I do believe that there is a firmament, that basically there's water above us. I know that there's a canopy theories out there, but again, in Psalms you have, the water still up there. So there's bodies of water above us. There's the fountains of the deep, below us. Again, you can read very precisely from Genesis that this is what we're looking at. So I would look at it as I don't believe I'm a spinning ball flying through space. As far as what I am in this investigation, I'm trying to figure it out like many, many people. But to say that I have everything completely mapped out, understand everything, I would not. So and I wouldn't be able to say that at all. But again, that's where I would look at. So again, when you hear the two words flat Earth, I mean, it turns people off. They think it's ridiculous, which, again, I laugh at it myself. I call myself an enclosed creationist, meaning that we're in an enclosed creation, not open with space-time and continuum like we're taught. So do I believe that there's stars and the sun and the moon? Of course I do. But, again, I look at it completely different. I look at it from a geocentric standpoint versus a heliocentric standpoint, where everything focused around the sun. I believe everything is revolving around the Earth. And again, there has been a lot of amazing documentary and research into the geocentric viewpoint, even keeping with the globe. Again, they're showing a lot of evidence to support the fact that the whole universe is spinning around us, that we're not moving to create that type of worldview. I don't hold to this spinning ball, but I do say that, we're on this investigation to figure out what truly is going on. Because when you look at the NASA pictures or you look at the math, again, things just aren't adding up. And again, we're trying to use the scientific method. We're trying to use that discovery to fully figure out what's going on.
Okay, the Catholic Church at one point described exactly what you just described, the geocentric universe. Then different people started to challenge it. They went to suppress it, but then that got out and it spread throughout the known world, that the sun was the center. So you're saying the Catholic Church was correct all along?
I'm saying that, yeah, if you look back in history, it was always geocentric. You can look at almost every type of civilization, and you can look at how they looked at that type of viewpoint. The big modern leaps were into the heliocentric model, which when you actually do your investigation and you find out, again, they were going basically purely on faith at that point. They had never, gone up into space. They had never, had all of these different things that we see today. But again, this is what took hold. This is what was kind of the predominant view. But there were people, like I mentioned before at the beginning of the broadcast, like you have Martin Luther, you have Augustine, you've got Calvin, you've got a lot of the great reformers, talking about this. So again, there's where your split is, where the Catholic Church started going to the heliocentric model. You can look at the reformers in the early church that they were saying, no, we're sticking to what the Bible says, like with Joshua 10:13. It's hard to get around that when it's commanding the sun and the moon to stop, meaning the sun does move. And again, there's over 70 verses in the Bible to support that the sun, moon, and stars move. There's not one verse to support the earth moves. So again, I always say to people,
well, I don't see that Bible verse supporting it either way. It's like, if I had vertigo and I looked out and I said, oh, I need the world to stop spinning. The world's not spinning. I'm spinning in my mind. I just need things to stop for me. I mean, I don't see that supports what you're saying one way or another. I don't say it discredits. I don't say it credits it.
Are you talking about Joshua 10? Sorry.
Yes, I'm talking about Joshua 10.
The moon and the sun stopped over specific places. It actually names two places you can look on the map and see where the actual sun and moon stopped over. So, again, yeah, I understand. You can look at it allegory and say it just has a deeper spiritual meaning. But I'm saying there's people out there that want to take the Bible literal. They say, I believe in 6 literal days that God created the world. I believe in the order that God created them in, that he created the earth, then he created the sun, moon, and stars. Modern-day science teaches that, of course, suns were created. And there's another lie. You look at the Bible, it says that there's a sun, moon, and also stars. Well, we're taught that all the stars we see are suns. So again, I'm just saying there's a major conflict if you're going to take the literal viewpoint when it comes to the Bible, especially with creation.
Okay. We're going to have to go to calls because I'm struggling a little bit to grasp what you're saying here. We're coming up on a break. We don't have a lot of time. On the other side, we already got 3 people in queue. More calls, 855-995-6923. If you call in, we will get your call. So just know that, 855-995-6923. 855-995-6923. Stay tuned. Your calls, the other side.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. We want to definitely remind you and thank you very, very much for your support of the Power Mall. The number 877-817-9829. Again, 877-817-9829. Or you can go to thepowermall.com. Perrier, the clay is back, the powdered clay. We're going to be talking to Ron Sally in the next hour and his Miracle Skin Heal-On and Lamb Cream. Of course, Dr. Edward Group, when Daniel was down there with Dr. Edward, just wonderful, wonderful products. They're all in the Power Mall. Andy Gossett is continuing his special offer with the Solar Hydro Water Purification Backpack, and you get a free hydration backpack, 2 free sediment filters, and a free carbon filter. So we thank you so much for supporting the powermall.com. Again, that number 877-817-9829. We are listening to a conversation with Robbie Robertson on his theories about the flat earth, and we've got some phone
calls.
Robbie
Robertson, that's from the band. He's the singer from the band.
Robbie Robertson. Excuse me. My flat brain just exploded. Robbie Davidson. We want to go to, I believe it's Chris in Missouri. Chris, you have a question? Chris in Missouri.
Morning. My question is this. Has your guest ever heard of the Michelson-Morley experiment?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You have to ask yourself why they don't allow that experiment. They've done it hundreds and thousands of times, and why they don't allow that in their scientific evidence.
But you're referring to Michelson-Morley, but what about Airy's failure? What about, there's multiple experiments, not just Michelson-Morley. I mean, I'm taking the scientific method. If we're coming to it with a scientific method, then what would you say is the strongest, scientific evidence for the spin of the Earth?
I think their test with the light, they run one light from one point to the other point, from north to south, and then they go east to west, and they found that the Earth isn't spinning anyway. And this test has been done so many times, but they won't allow this in the scientific community because it doesn't fit with what they want. There's a lot of things that the government tells us that isn't true, like we've been to the moon. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life, but
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm saying to a lot of people, though, if we haven't been to the moon, hypothetically, the question is, how far can we go? And again, what are all those pictures that we're getting, right? Because when you start looking into it, you find out that NASA admits they're all composites. They're CGI. They're renderings. They admit that they can't actually get a complete image of the Earth. I mean, the famous blue marble, I mean, there's major problems with that. But I will say it's 2017, and there is no HD video footage of the spinning ball anywhere, from any of their satellites, from the moon, anywhere. And again, if you actually look for a real photograph of the Earth, try it yourself. This is what many people are doing. They're trying to find it, and NASA admits we don't have it. And they actually, if you start looking into it further, they admit a lot of stuff that started going, wait a minute, this is crazy. It's 2017. We got to the moon and back, no problem, in 60s, 70s, but now we can't.
Well, it does say in the Bible that the Earth is a sphere, and it's immovable. God said it, and it's immovable, and it's a sphere, so it's not gyrating or rotating or doing anything like that. Everything else revolves around the Earth.
I would agree with you, 100%.
Okay, what would you say, talk about spherical shape. There's many weather satellites up there that are taking pictures of the Earth. They're not even that high, and they clearly show that the Earth is round.
I'd say that in my research, they're weather balloons. If you want to start looking up a real photograph of a satellite, Google it. Anyone can do this right now with their computer. Google a satellite and look at those and ask yourself, are those real? There are no real photographs of satellites. And again, this seems kind of crazy. What about GPS? But again, just do the research. Don't believe what I'm telling you. Go and do your own research, because the question is, if there isn't satellites, then sorry.
Okay, there's lots of, you don't have to apologize. We have a little bit of connection problems, but I'm not trying to be contentious. I'm just, you're putting out a lot of information, and I think it needs to be at least challenged. NASA has put out hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and you talk about them being CGI or whatever. They've compiled different pictures just to enhance clarity. The raw original picture may not be as clear, but it still shows the Earth as being round.
They take strips of data and compile them together to give the actual globe. They admit they actually can't. It's not about just enhancing a picture. They admit that they're actually grabbing satellite imagery. But it's interesting, they can get 1 million miles away with a satellite to take a picture of the moon, the dark side of the moon that no one's ever seen, but yet they can't get a real photograph of the Earth. Again, if you look at this, the White House retweeted, the big blue marble in 2015 to say, congratulations, it's been almost 50 years since we've been to the moon. But if you actually start looking into it, you'll find that they admit right on their own website, these are composites. The only real photograph was on the last Apollo mission in 1972. That was the time they decided to take a picture of the Earth. It seemed like all the other Apollo missions, they were just like, so busy. And then the last one, they're like, oh, let's take a picture of the Earth. That's the famous one you see everywhere. Even on your iPhone, when you switch it on, you see that blue marble. That's the famous shot. But if you start looking into it, you have people even that are looking and saying, hey, it has to be a composite. We use Photoshop. We do all these sort of things. So the question people are just asking is saying, I want to see a real photograph. I want to see a real photograph of a satellite. What about a satellite taking a picture of other satellites? But we don't see this.
What about the astronauts doing? Astronauts have done Facebook Live pictures of in space and looking back on the Earth. What about that?
Well, I mean, this gets into more conspiratorial type stuff, but here's the fact. There's never ever been a 360 pan of anyone ever in space. When it comes to the airlocks, there's never been a continual video footage of them going from the inside to the outside. It's always cut, and you would think it'd be very easy because they have the cameras, just show us going all the way through. But again, if you start looking into it, you've got all this stuff that's happening, but the question is, what is really going on? They admit that the ISS is 250 miles above us, and people claim that they can see it, but understand that it's the size of a school bus. You can't hardly see a plane at 40,000, 50,000 feet, and you're going to say that you can see at 250 miles high, you can see the ISS. But again, people see lights in the sky. I'm not debating that. And again, I'm not going so far as to say the ISS doesn't even exist. But what I'm saying is, how high can they go? They went in the 60s and 70s 240,000 miles, 250,000 miles away. And yet, since then, in 50 years, the furthest that they have gone, any space agency, man has gone only 400 miles. You look this up, and it's startling. And you're saying, wait a minute, you went 250,000 miles, and since then, man has only gone 400 miles? What's going on here? We have this amazing technology in the 60s and 70s, but all this progress is in science and technology, and they're admitting that hopefully one day we'll be able to go back to the moon or Mars or beyond on the ISS. They say they're gathering all this research, so hopefully they can do this one day. So I'm just looking and compiling. Many researchers are looking at this data, and I'm saying be very suspicious of NASA, because NASA is pretty much the reason why everyone believes what they believe is NASA and other space agencies. But again, there's only been, in the history of the world, 500 people that have ever been to space. So what I'm saying is you have to start breaking it down.
Well, there's no question that the governments of the world have a credibility issue. there's no question that's true. But Sam, you got a question. I thought this is probably the best question I've heard.
Yeah, well, I just have a question. The millions of globes that have been sold. I mean, what are they banking on? I mean, what would the benefit be of deceiving the entire world? Okay, what would the benefit be, and who's benefiting from the deceit of the entire world on the shape of the earth?
Well, and I'm going to go on a spiritual front, and I'm going to say that Satan has a ton to gain from this, is destroying the credibility of the Bible. Once you completely destroy the foundations of the Bible, everything falls apart. Once you basically start cracking at those themes, nobody can trust what the Bible says. They couldn't get the cosmology right. They couldn't get these facts right. So I think that it's been a direct assault, and as easily as we, sitting in kindergarten or grade 1, we spin this globe, but no one really asks question. They just take it as fact. And I would believe it's very, very early indoctrination in the fact that it's in every classroom, it's on every children's show, all this, and we just learn our worldview. Our worldview is shaped by scientism, and that's why I say that I'm a big believer of science. True science is wonderful. It's scientism I have a problem with, because scientism is not based on the scientific method. It's based on an agenda, just like an agenda when it comes to evolution to teach us that we came from monkeys. We came from a rock. It rained on rocks for millions of years, and we became this. So giving people no dignity, no purpose, and destroying the Creator. I mean, you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that God is a pocket of scientific ignorance. You've got Lawrence Krauss saying, forget Jesus. The stars died for you. They birthed you, so forget Jesus. These guys are very spiritual. They're very anti-Christian, anti-Bible. And again, I'm looking at everything that's been geared towards destroying the credibility of the Bible, because when you destroy the Creator,
so how does it?
Evidence of the Creator.
Hold on one second, Robbie. Hold on one second. You put out a ton of information. You're talking a little quick for me. So how is it destroying the Bible to think that the Earth spins?
Because the Bible clearly says that it doesn't.
Clearly says where?
The Bible, that the Earth doesn't move?
Yes. No, it doesn't spin. Yeah.
It says it's firm. It says it's. There's many verses. What I'm saying to you though is there's not one verse to support the movement of the Earth. There's over 70 verses. You're putting me on the spot here. I'm not sure offhand, but again, there's.
Well, I'm not trying to. No, I'm just trying.
That's fine.
I'm really trying to follow what you're saying.
Sure. I mean, I can get into like all of the verses. I mean, there's over 70 verses to support that the sun, moon, and stars move. But again, when you get into the earth, I'm still looking for that one verse that says that the earth soars through the heavens like an eagle. Even that one verse alone would destroy my argument, would destroy this whole premise. But again, you look through the entire Bible, you won't find one verse to support that the earth moves, spins, wobbles, just like that last caller that called in. said, it's true. We do not move. Everything moves. Everything revolves around us. The stars that you brought up before, if you look at star trails with time-lapse photography, you see complete circles. Polaris, the North Star, never moves. So you're saying that we're flying around the universe, and yet it's the same stars we see that the people that 500 years ago saw. They never move. They stay completely the same all the time. But yet we're flying through the universe and through the Milky Way galaxy, but yet the stars stay exactly the same.
Well, that's not entirely true on the stars there. I know it's not. I don't know enough to discuss it with you, but I know that's not entirely true, at least my belief. Let's go to Renee in North Carolina. Renee, what would you like to bring to this discussion, Renee?
Well, kudos, Daniel, for at least having the guy on, because so many Bible-believing Christian patriots scoff at this sort of thing when they don't like things that they have ideas that are like non-establishment, and they don't like being scoffed at and called conspiracy theorists. So kudos to you for at least having this guy on. You know, we've been lied to about everything like everyone else. I thought these people were nuts. And then I started looking at a lot of things like, you know, like how could you use the stars to navigate at sea if we're constantly going at all this speed and spinning and everything else? I don't see how they could have used the stars in the past to navigate when at sea. And 15 years ago, see, that's why I'm on the fence. About 15 years ago, I went to the Air and Space Museum before I even knew or suspected anything. And they showed me what they said was the actual, you know, capsule and stuff that went to space. And it was so small, I even asked them, is that a replica? Oh, no, that's the real thing. Let me tell you, that piece of junk I saw hanging up on the ceiling, I think if it had been made in shop class, the kids would have flown. If they were going to say, Renee, we had enough of you, we're going to ship you to outer space, I'd say, look, put me in my 20-year-old Toyota 4Runner, because I think I stand a better shot in that in my 20-year-old Toyota than you what went to the moon and back.
I'm laughing because I went to...
freedom, one thing. If you want freedom, you better hope these people... I hope they're right. I hope with every bone in my body they're right. Because if this could be proven, this would so discredit our leaders and authority figures that it would release our oppressors.
Well, I don't think we need... I don't think we need a spinning Earth to prove or disprove the credit of our leaders, of our so-called leaders. I don't think we need that to prove that they have no credibility. But hold on, Renee, hold on 1 second. You got my head spinning. You got me laughing too. That was hilarious. The sky. Anciently, that we know that the stars and the star pattern were different than they were, 2,000 years ago, they were different than they are now. We know that by computer models. They do change. We do know that. It's just slow. So I don't get that. But anyway, go ahead. Do you have one question for our guest? Do you have a simple question?
Yes, I do. I have heard, and I'd like him to address this, that pilots are not adjusting as they're flying like from California to Hawaii. They are not adjusting to maintain their altitude for curvature. Well,
that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. The pilots are coming forward now based on gyroscopes and showing that there is no dipping your nose every few miles, which would have to happen on a 24,000 mile circumference ball. If you actually start doing the models, if you stay at your altitude, you're going to fly into outer space. I mean, it's just, you can do these models and see. So they're not dipping their nose. They'll say, well, it's gravity, it's magically sucking us down. And again, that's the magic G word they have for every single thing that holds every one of the theories together. Yet it's never been proven. It's never been measured. It's never been seen. It's never been tested. Again, it's the theory of gravity that basically holds every single one of these things together. And all we're doing is we're taking the scientific method, we're applying it and saying, wait a minute, things are not right. And again, before you had asked about the verses, I just have a couple. First Chronicles 16:30, talking about the world shall be stable, that it be not moved. And also in Psalms, the earth and all its inhabitants therefore, will be in a stableness as far as the earth goes. You had asked about, talks about it being on pillars. And again, these are the type of things that, hey, the furthest that man has drilled, they show us the core in all the science textbooks, but the furthest that man has ever drilled is like 8 miles down. Yep, they tell us what the core is and the molten core and all. These are theories. This is fantasy. They do not have.
Well, you can certainly convince me the Earth is hollow way quicker than you can convince me that it's flat. That's for sure. If you want to have that argument.
Yeah, and I think a first step honestly is to start looking into geocentrism. I mean, I don't believe it's about the shape of the Earth. I believe it's about many of the lies that we have been taught, is to look into the other side and see, if possible, there are other things that are kind of adding up. But again, it's not about the shape of the Earth. It's about kind of detecting a lot of the lies that we were taught as established truth, non-debatable, it's proven fact, and there is no more discussion.
All right.
This is what they say.
Let's go to Roscoe in Tennessee. Roscoe in Tennessee, do you have a question for our guest?
Yes, I promise I'm trying to keep an open mind. Every time I hear Renee, I wish
me too. You and me both, Roscoe.
Every time I hear Renee, I wish
there's the music.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're on a break. I wasn't paying attention. You got me so flustered talking about spinning Earth and non-spinning Earth. We'll be back after this 3-minute break. Roscoe, stay right there. If you got in, we're going to take your call even if we go past the top of the hour. So if you're in, we're going to take your call. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Power Hour. Welcome back to the Power Hour, 54 minutes after the hour. According to Robbie, the Catholic Church was right all along. Back way then, that the Earth is the center of the universe, geocentric. At least that's his theory. We're having a good time going back and forth on this. I haven't seen, you posed a lot of ideas. I haven't seen a lot of evidence, to be honest with you. But let's go back to Roscoe. What question or comment do you have for our guest?
Well, support for flat Earth that I've long known is that the Coriolis effect is a myth. The idea that water going down a basin goes different directions in different hemispheres is just not true. And the pictures...
What about the stars? Hey, Roscoe, what about the stars? Because the stars do go in different directions.
Well, if we're in a galaxy and we're all swirling together, then, that even if we're all moving through space, us and the other stars around us, then they would appear static to us. Yes, they've changed over the millennia very, very, very slowly. Back to the water around the drain, think of pepper in the water, that you're going to see sort of constellations that are going to sort of stick together. But my real questions had to do with a couple of things that we learned in grade school that I don't entirely understand, but I'm having trouble making jibe with flat Earth. One is Eratosthenes, the ancient Greek, measuring the circumference of the Earth by measuring shadows different places at the same time. And but if the sun is smaller and closer, then that would explain that.
Yeah.
And I guess my question about a thing that I never understood in the first place, but was supposed to explain the movement of the Earth, is Foucault's pendulum. That middle of the 19th century, the pattern traced by a moving pendulum was supposed to support the idea that the Earth is spinning.
Very good points. Any comment, Robbie?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with with what he was bringing up as far as looking at the world. Precisely, what was the exact question that he had?
If you can address Foucault's pendulum.
Sure. I mean, nobody's been able to replicate it, and also you have to actually start it. It doesn't start by itself. You actually have to basically create the start on that. So, again, for someone to actually grab a Foucault pendulum and try the experiment themselves without actually starting it, they can't replicate it. So, again, you just look into it. For any listeners, research the pendulum and look into it and see. And this is what people are doing. They're starting to really dig deep and looking into these things that we're taught, hey, this is proof. This is the experiment, or this is what proves, but again, you start looking into it, you find a lot of, missing links as far as the theory is concerned. Yeah.
Well, in the southern hemisphere, the stars do spin one way, and in the northern, they do spin another way. nobody can tell me different of that.
Yeah, I would say that it's still an issue that people are still working on, understanding, what's going on there. But again, there's a mountain of evidence to support, otherwise. But it still is something that many people are looking at. There's some good explanations out there, but I don't think it's 100% conclusive that we totally understand even how the sun and moon work yet. But it still is a good point. There's no doubt about it.
Johnny B. Oh, I'm sorry, Roscoe. I didn't know you were still there. Go ahead.
I just wondered if he had a specific way to address Eratosthenes measuring the circumference of the Earth.
Thank you.
Sure. I mean, did he do it with cell phone? Yeah, did he do it with cell phone? I mean, if you actually start looking into it at that time period, I mean, he went really far away. And I mean, how was he communicating with the other person? But to answer your question, yes, if the sun is smaller and closer, you can replicate the same shadows. It is actually not proof at all. It's probably the first thing that was debunked as far as proving. It just proves based on the theory of 93 million miles away or 3,000 or 4,000 miles away with the smaller sun.
Okay, we have to go to break. We got to go to break. He talked about sunlight through clouds. We got to go to break. We'll be back. 1 minute, 10-second break, quick. And we got Johnny B. You're on deck. Robbie, you can stay through to the next hour a little bit. Yes.
Stay in. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, here we go. We will be back. Stay tuned. Good morning. Welcome back to the Power Hour, straight up top of the hour, across the globe. So glad that you are joining us. It is all about the truth. And in the truth, you have to ask questions. And Robbie Davidson from Celebrate Truth has been quite a sport to come on and talk with us. And I've really enjoyed being with him. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion, although it's a little hard to follow sometimes. But that's kind of what we're talking about, these far-out ideas and philosophies. Let's go back to the callers. Johnny B., you are live on the air. What do you got for us this morning, Johnny?
Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Morning.
Got an observation, and then I've got a question. And I'm sure this is something that my counterpart did about 800 years ago. Observation, this topic completely eviscerated the forward movement of the American people as we were moving forward to hold our elected accountable. So here's my question. What does this discussion, whether it's found correct or not, what's it got to do with day-to-day life on this planet?
I would say that, if you just take it from a hypothetical, can you think of any bigger lie than this? If this was indeed true, and again, how would it affect your life? It would if you came to the understanding that, indeed, they were lying about the entire origin of everything that existed. I'm thinking it would change.
Okay, so we're devolved to the point that they're lying to us. Guys, my whole life has been a lie. Everything they've ever told me was a lie. But it still didn't matter to me living day to day. That's my question. What does it matter?
Well, what do a lot of things we discuss matter day to day? Whether we're going to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch or not, Johnny, we still discuss them.
Right, I think absolutely. But the round Earth really it has nothing to do with us living as God's children, maintaining the garden, caretaking for His.
Well, this is the first time today that I'm going to stick up for Robbie. I'm going to side with Robbie on this one. Yeah, you better record this, because if Robbie's correct, or the things he's bringing up are correct, that they're lying to us about these things and the scale that they're lying, that's important, because it's a gateway, like Renee said, to, well, what else are they lying? The whole thing's a lie. That does affect us on a daily basis.
Come on, Daniel. Look at 9/11. That impacts us a hell of a lot more around Earth.
And I'd say that's very important.
Some would argue.
Into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So why spend all the time?
Well, let me ask you this
defunct thing that was argued 800 years ago and showed wrong. The people circumnavigated.
Well, Johnny, I'm sorry that we have wasted your time this morning, Johnny. I'm sorry, sir.
Not at all.
Robbie, what
conversation? Everybody's focusing.
Here's an interesting tidbit, though, just for your listeners. The globe has never been circumnavigated north to south. East to west, sure, but it's very interesting. In 2017, with all the technology, no one's ever circumnavigated the globe north to south. just something interesting for people to think about.
Well, right. Who's going to go across who wants to go across the North Pole and South Pole? It's very difficult. Anyway,
well, they go across the North Pole, but they say the South Pole is too cold. But yet, the temperatures in space are like minus 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, these satellites can withstand these type of temperatures in space. You would think that they would have equipment to be able just for fun. Just hey, let's just go around the globe. Let's just go right over Antarctica. That's another topic for another time.
All right, okay. Johnny, you bring up a good point, I guess, on some level. Thank you for your question. Very good. Let's go to the next caller. Let's go to Dave in the Thumb. Dave in the Thumb, what do you got for us? Are we disturbing you this morning also? Did Dave drop off?
I'm sorry,
Dave,
I was on mute. I was feeding my chickens. Sorry.
Well.
Okay. No, first of all, I want to say I love and miss Joyce, but I'll tell you, Daniel, you and Sam are doing a wonderful job filling that void. So thank you.
Thank you. It's very nice. Very nice of you. Thank you. Hey, we got a break. Stay right there, will you, please? We're going to get your call. If you're in, we're going to get all your calls. I don't know if Blake has shut it off or not, but stay right there. Dave will come to you on the other side. And then Ron Sally coming up. Back to the Power Hour, 8 minutes after the hour. We come to the last few minutes here with Robbie. He's been a great sport coming on to talk about flat Earth theory. I mean, just even thinking about it gives me a flat head, let me tell you. Robbie, I know since you brought it up, people are going to ask, what's your feelings about 9/11? Do you believe the official 9/11 story, or do you believe something else happened, or what's your feelings?
No, absolutely not. And I think 9/11 is something that is important to look at. And I look at it as a kind of a conspiracy scale. You can go 9/11, get to moon landing, and then we're talking about flat Earth theory. So understandable that a lot of people will be looking at this as the upper echelon, as the most craziest fringe type idea. But I mean, my channel I started 2 years ago, and it's almost 5 million views. So this is resonating with a lot of people from various walks and different beliefs. So this is something that I think is here to stay.
Well, I think what resonates is the level of deception that we've been told on so many things. I mean, you do bring up good points. See, I will side with you on that. There are so many things that we've been lied to or misled about that leads people to be suspicious for sure. I could say, what if I told you the moon is made of cheese?
I would say
the moon's made of cheese.
Yeah, no, I don't believe so.
Okay, you don't believe so, but you don't know it. You can't prove that it's not.
Sure. But again, I think that's where flat Earth gets kind of lumped in. And if you look at like Obama, in his last, 3 years, he mentioned Flat Earth Society. And again, a lot of people, when they come to the subject, they'll go to Flat Earth Society, which was set up to completely derail the investigation, because the stuff that they actually put forward is ridiculous, that we're on a flying flat, pancake flying through space. Well, nobody that I know, and I've been in this and I've been involved in the community for a long time, nobody believes that. And again, true scientific experimentation, or people that are coming to this topic earnestly and genuinely, do not believe any of these things have been put forward with the Flat Earth Society. But again, more and more people are speaking about this. You're seeing more media attention, more people are coming forward, and it's just going to continually amplify. And a lot of these people are into other things, investigations like 9/11, like you brought up, getting into vaccinations, getting into climate change, other issues of science where we find out it's actually scientism. And that's what I did with Scientism Exposed. I'm putting that together. Scientism Exposed 2 will come out this fall, and it will present a lot more of lies that we've been taught by scientism.
Well, awesome. Let's go back to Dave in the Thumb. Dave, welcome back to the show. What comment or question do you have?
Well, I'd like to say thanks for having Robbie on. I do appreciate, exploring this, vast conspiracy theory, right? But I'll tell you, I'm leaning towards the Flat Earth movement, because who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? I'm legally blind, but I do have some sight left, And in the past, my vision was corrected to 20/20. I've flown a couple dozen times. I've never seen a curve. And when you say the Earth has been circumnavigated, you know, at what point did the ship go upside down? And I've heard pilots. Look, there's 3 shows that I like to listen to on a weekly basis. One is called Jeranism, and the other is Strange World with Mark Sargent. Jaron and Missa are the Jeranism team, and there's a guy, Rob Skiba. This guy is a Bible scholar, and they are flat earthers. And,
yeah, he's great.
You know, these guys, I'm telling you, Robbie, with all due respect, I think they had you on to steer the movement away from flat Earth, not to take anything away from you. I've never heard of you, not that I'm, some big flat earther or anything like that. I really don't know. I can't prove any of this. Just like NASA can't prove that they went to the moon. Just like they can't prove that the moon is how many billions or millions of miles away from us? BS. Okay? That's a big crowd. Look at the sun. I mean, I'm sorry, not the sun, the moon, the sun. Look at the sun. Can you honestly say that sun is the distance they claim it is? That's baloney. I don't believe
and you bring
it.
up
My lying eyes are telling
reporters.
me that sun is no farther away from us than the moon.
Dave, maybe you can tell us, since you're up into this a little bit, obviously, what shape do most flat earthers or whatever you call yourselves?
We're not saying the Earth isn't round. It is round. That's how they can circumnavigate around the world. It's a circle, okay? It's a disc. But
so it's like a frisbee. You mean like a frisbee?
Okay? It's not proven. Just like all science about space, they can't prove it, Daniel. It's all theory. And when you disagree with those guys, they want to kill you. These guys that are doing this flat Earth movement, they are getting death threats, just like 800 years ago when those guys who said the Earth ain't flat, it's a globe. How do they know that? They're guessing. It's all guesswork, and somebody put them up to it. So most science is not provable. It's theory. And all I'm saying is we've been lied to since man has ruled man. Think about it. They've been lying to us about gods. They've been killing us in the name of gods, killing our virgins and our daughters and our sons and wives, and wars, and it's insanity. But also, this is my deal. This is my deal. You guys keep reaching out and looking for the truth, no matter what Johnny B. and I are friends, but I really disagree with this does change our lives from day to day, okay? Maybe when we wake up to this idiocracy, we'll start picking some, not leaders, but like we're supposed to, our representative republic, right? We're not supposed to be led. We're self-governed. But we have been asleep at the wheel for way too long. And Johnny's right about that. There are more important things than this, but this is very important that we've been lied to. This is huge. If they can prove, and they can't, that this is a globe or a disc, we don't know. We have no idea. You and I, none of us on this phone can prove that, but we can sure. These guys that I mentioned, they're doing experiments. Daniel, go to Flat Earth Clues movie. It's a documentary. Mark Sargent did this movie. It's about Admiral Byrd. There's all these flat Earth clues, and he has a show every Tuesday night on Truth Frequency Radio. He has callers call in and he reads emails from people. He's had I've personally heard dozens of pilots, military people, artillery people, tank people, guys that drive the tanks and shoot guns, cannons and stuff. There is no adjustment for the spinning Earth, and I know the Coriolis effect, is that what they call that? Mm-hmm. It's all BS. There's no, and then these pilots say, equipment goes out.
Let me ask you.
Pardon me?
I'm going to ask you, Dave, let me ask you the same thing. This is the one, some of these things are arbitrary. Some of these things can't be proven. A lot of this discussion, that's part of the problem, you know, and we're just sitting here talking about whatever. In the northern hemisphere, the stars spin one way. In the southern hemisphere, they spin another way. That's telling me.
How do you know that, Daniel?
Okay, I have not been there to look, but people look up in the sky, astronomers, whatever. Everybody accepts that the stars spin a certain way. I mean, that's like what color?
Because they've been conditioned for their whole lives.
Dave, come on. That's like saying this room. That's like saying this room. You know, what color are the walls in this room? That's like saying, well, there's kind of a. Well, right. That's like saying, well, they kind of look blue. I'm telling you, they're kind of blue.
So I got to take your word for it. How do I know you're not colorblind? Most people think that are colorblind think they're not.
Well, you can be colorblind or not. You can tell which way something's spinning. The world agrees that. Southern hemisphere, the stars spin one way. Northern hemisphere, they spin another. I haven't heard. Even Robbie doesn't. I don't think you disagree with me, Robbie. Do you?
I'm saying it's something that people are still tackling, but there's such a mountain of evidence to support, you know, that we are not on a spinning ball, you know, flying through space. But I do agree with you based on the stars.
Let me say one thing.
You can say, sure,
you guys have been on a tilt-a-whirl before, right? At the fair, a tilt-a-whirl. You feel that sucker spinning, right? How fast is that thing spinning?
That's a terrible comparison. You know, I have no idea. That's a terrible comparison.
The globe is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, Daniel. 1,000 miles per hour. You know how fast that is? Come on. You've been in a car, you drive 80 miles an hour. You feel that, man. It puts you back in your seat, right? Come on.
Yeah, but you're on the earth. You're not spinning. Yeah, okay, but if I'm in a plane, all right, Dave. I'll debunk your argument right here. If I'm in a plane, the damn plane's going 600 miles an hour, but I'm not moving at all because I'm in the plane. I'm on the plane. If I'm on the earth, it could be moving 500,000 whatever miles an hour. I don't feel it. If I'm in a plane, I don't feel like I'm moving 600 miles an hour.
I don't think it's the same thing.
I would say that it's a point, Daniel, but again, you're dealing with an atmosphere that's adjacent to a vacuum without a solid barrier. Try to figure that one out as far as any type of scientific, you know, experiment. I mean, we cannot replicate that.
We've digressed.
Sorry.
All right, Daniel, write this down. Flat Earth Clues, the movie. Watch it, all right?
You know, for Dave, for you, I am going to watch this movie, or at least some of it. I don't know how long it is. We got to go. We got to go. Dave, great call.
Dave, you got your chickens to take care of, man.
Yeah, go take care of the chickens, Dave. Great call, buddy. Thank you to everybody. Robbie, thank you again for coming on. We got about 20 seconds. We got about 10 seconds. Conclusion is yours.
Celebrate Truth. Just Google Celebrate Truth, website celebratetruth.org, or basically go to my YouTube and you can see a lot of material around this subject matter. Thanks so much.
God bless everybody. Coming back, Ron, Sally, and Sam. Sam, please get us back on track.